What is Hubble? The Hubble Space Telescope is a telescope located in orbit around the Earth. It stands at about 270 kilometers above the Earth's surface and is the largest telescope currently in space. The telescope had a mass of around 11,110 kilograms at the time of launch and is 13.2 meters long and 4.2 meters wide. In addition to two solar panels, each 2.45 meters by 7.656 meters. It is equipped with a collection of science instruments that work across the entire spectrum, allowing the Hubble Space Telescope to see in many different wavelengths. The Hubble Space Telescope is one of NASA's longest-lasting projects, as it has been in commission and fully functioning for 28 years and counting. The Hubble Telescope's cost was about $4.7 billion at launch, and with about $10 billion in cumulative costs in 2010, 20 years after launch.
Why was the Hubble built, and why is it in space? We've been faced with one of the hardest problems, our own atmosphere. Moving air pockets in the Earth's atmosphere distort the view of telescopes looking from the ground, making the image blurry and unclear. No matter how big or advanced the telescope is, the atmospheric distortion still affects it and blurs the image. Many attempts have been made to try and correct this distortion. Though recent newer technological advancements have made it possible, it still doesn't change the fact that the atmosphere partially blocks or absorbs certain wavelengths of radiation like UV, gamma, X-rays before they can reach the Earth. And scientists' best way of examining a star is by looking at those wavelengths. And with the atmosphere blocking the radiation, scientists had to find a way around it. The Hubble telescope fixed all the problems by not only being one of the strongest telescopes ever made, but being the telescope that orbits around the Earth, fixing the problem of atmospheric distortion and also being able to scan and examine the radiation given off by stars before they are blocked by our atmosphere. As of spring 2018, the Hubble telescope has made over 1.5 million observations in more than 43,500 celestial objects. No other telescope has even come close to matching those numbers. The Hubble telescope has helped us understand our universe into beyond what we thought was possible, with over 28 years worth of observation and more than 153 terabytes of stored data on stars, planets, new galaxies, black holes, supernovas, dark energy, and many other celestial objects that we thought were impossible to reach 28 years ago. Hubble continues to generate over 80 gigabytes of data each month, data that helps astronomers support their hypothesis or write their reports. Astronomers have written over 15,500 groundbreaking scientific reports based on Hubble data, making it one of the most productive scientific instruments ever and one of the most successful NASA projects ever. The Hubble continues to prove its worth and major milestones in the astronomy community. One example focused the Hubble on a spot for 10 days, when usually photos only take hours. After 10 days, the blur finally became clear and the risk paid off when the Hubble captured 3,000 galaxies, large and small, all in one picture. The picture is called the Hubble Deep Field. The Hubble even performed a definitive study on 31 Cepheid stars, helping to determine its expansion rate and thereby narrowing the age of the universe to the smallest it's ever been, answering the biggest question about our universe. We now know the universe is 13.7 billion years old, give or take a few hundred million years, all thanks to the Hubble.
Problems and limitations. Hubble cannot observe the sun because the intense light and heat would fry its sensitive instruments. For this reason, the telescope is always pointed away from the sun. That also means that the Hubble can't observe Mercury, Venus, and some certain stars that are very close to the sun either. Hubble's orbit also restricts what can be seen. This limits the amount of time spent observing a specific object. Lastly, the telescope sometimes passes through a section of the Van Allen radiation belts, where there are charged particles that come from the solar winds of the sun. These cause high background radiation, which interferes with the instrument's detectors. Hubble is nearly 2 decades old, and it is rumored that NASA expects the Hubble to be outdated within the next few years. On October 8, 2018, one of the gyroscopes on the Hubble failed, therefore forcing Hubble to enter a safe mode. Hubble's premier camera shut down very recently on January 8, 2019 due to a hardware problem. This is the first time that this has ever happened.
So, why is this important? Why did you just sit through and listen to a 5-minute presentation about the Hubble? Well, the Hubble has major importance because of how much of an impact it has played in our knowledge of science. Not only has the telescope served past its expectations, it has also exceeded success over every other scientific instrument. It has provided more information and given contribution to more scientific breakthroughs than any other scientific instrument in its generation. The Hubble may be out of date soon, but the 30 years it served isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Thank you for listening. This is Josh and Ray.